For politicians, they're really just focused very short term. So you have all these critiques of how banks or CEOs of large organizations are just looking in the short term, while politicians are no different. They just want to get reelected. So the best way to get reelected is to promise to give things. Well, if you're going to promise to give things, you need money to pay for the things that you're going to give. Well, you're going to have to take that money from somewhere. So how do you take money from somewhere to give it to the people who are going to vote for you? Well, the best way to do it is to steal it from the future. And the people who really can't complain about that are the people who can't vote. They're too young or they're not even born yet. They're going to carry the burden. And what's really tough within the United States right now, and we're seeing this in the United States, in Japan, in Europe pretty decently as well, and China is going to hit it very hard here soon, where you had a very large group of, a very large percentage of the population is now getting into the older years. So that's a very powerful voting group. So of course, you're going to vote for what works out well for you, and the population that's going to pay for it is a very small one. So you've got, in the US, you've got the baby boomers all heading into retirement, and you have the X and the Y generation, which are supposed to support them, but there's not many of the X and Y to actually handle that, let alone the people who are yet to be born. But as Dan was saying on the panel, it looks most likely, because no politician is really going to want to take the pain on this one, at least none that we see on the current stage, because to take care of this problem is going to cause a lot of pain. Why take it now? Take maybe a little bit, make a few changes here and there, fix a few things, but mostly what you want to do is just kick the can and give it to the next guy, because whatever happens, the failure is not going to be on my watch. I don't want that for the history books.
So is that why then maybe our President Obama re-elected some of the same people who actually were great at ruining this, creating this whole situation of ruin and reinstalling them in other places within our government? So if this continues, this sort of level of corruption where the very few and the very powerful retain these powerful positions, aren't we going to see the same things? Or are we ever going to break the cycle, and if so, how? If they're going to vote because they want to be reelected or whatever the game is that they're playing?
Well, history would say that this never ends well, and it pretty much always ends in revolution. Now, hopefully, we will have some sort of a revolution, because it's necessary. We need to change the way things are done. But hopefully this one won't have to be a bloody revolution. This will be a revolution that occurs in the polling place. And like you were saying, I think one of my favorite quotes of Milton Friedman is, "Business is the natural enemy of the free markets." First time I heard that, I was a little tight when I heard that. What is he talking about? How can businesses hate the free markets? That's what they live in. Yes, but once I'm in business, once I am a successful business, I do not want the free markets. I want to be protected. I want to put as many barriers up as possible. So I love free markets as an entrepreneur. Once I'm a successful business, oh no. So what do? I go to my politicians and I say, give me I'll pay for you, you pay for me. You give me a little bit of protection. And we've got this, the 99, right? The 1% and the 99%. And there's a lot of credibility for those people, because they look out and what they see really is happening. It's not capitalism. I even hate that we call it crony capitalism. It is simply cronyism. Those in power stay in power by putting up barriers to maintain their power and make it more and more difficult for new entrants to come into the market. So is it any surprise we see the income gap continuing to widen? Those who have continue to have more. They've always got options. You've got like Monti in Italy trying to appease, understandably, the electorate by placing some taxes on the rich, because that's a good way to get votes, is you tax the rich. Except for the really, really rich, they always have options. They always have ways to move their assets around, and son of a gun, they do. So the only people you really hurt are those who are just trying to get to be rich. They're at the cusp there. They can't protect themselves. And what it really does, it trickle down to hurt those who are trying to provide services and goods to the rich, because the rich will go someplace else. They always have choices.
My final question. The IMF is saying that we're basically out of the dark, but other experts are saying that it's going to get worse before it gets better. What do you think?
Oh, we're definitely not out of the dark. All we've done is we took the private problems, and those private problems were induced by government behavior, both fiscal and monetary policy, that induced irresponsible private behavior. We took that private behavior and we've now placed it into the public sector. Now, granted, the public sector has deeper pockets and it can go on for a longer period of time than a private enterprise, but those problems are not solved. And all we're doing is hitting the accelerator pedal. You were saying with Obama, well, Obama's done much of what Bush did that put us here. He's just doing it faster.